Today, I want to share three different Korean instant meals that I go to when I don't have the capacity to fully cook. None of them even require a stove, which for me just makes them feel so much less daunting. The first meal takes less than 10 minutes, the second meal takes less than 15 minutes, and the third meal takes less than 30 minutes, just depending on how much time you have to spend. Anyone who knows me knows that I love cooking, but the past few months I don't always have the time and energy to cook. I feel like making space for grief means having less space for regular schmegular daily tasks. And I've definitely noticed that I just don't have the capacity to cognitively process all the steps that it takes to make a full meal. And that's where instant meals come in. I think the beautiful part of instant meals is that it already sets the foundation for a meal. You just have to build on that so that you can transform an instant meal into something that's nutritious and delicious. I really hope you try one of them out. And even if you don't make the exact same meal, I hope that it just gives you an idea of what you can do when you don't have time and energy to cook. I really love the idea of making cooking accessible, and I hope that this video does exactly that.
Let's start with some grocery shopping. To make sure that we were spending as little as possible, the three instant meals I'm cooking today will be using a lot of the same ingredients. Our grocery haul included microwavable jasmine rice, kimchi tuna, spam, Shin Ramyun, a Yubuchobap kit, kimchi, cucumbers, and lettuce. Whenever I'm doing a week of just instant meals, I also like to buy some ready-made food in case there are days where I have absolutely no energy to cook. Here I have a veggie banh mi and sushi for 2 dinners, some red bean buns and mango for 2 breakfasts, and coconut wafers for a snack. Altogether, it costs $54 for the ready-made food and instant meal ingredients, which is roughly $7 for a medium-sized meal or $13 for a large-sized meal, depending on your appetite. I ended up with leftovers for every ingredient that I bought, but I also used a couple flavor boosters from my house in the instant meals, so I figured that would balance things out price-wise. Okay, first up, taking less than 10 minutes, we have Shin Ramyun. For this meal, we need 1 Shin Ramyun cup noodle, kimchi, and spam. I initially thought of adding lettuce, but changed my mind last minute to cucumbers to eat at the side. I also used some green onions, milk, and mui tom, which is Vietnamese shrimp salt from home. These are optional but recommended. I started by opening up the cup noodle pack and adding in the seasonings. Then I finally chopped up 2 green onions and added them to the cup. Next, I diced up some spam and added this to the cup as well. And finally, I sliced up some kimchi and added that to the cup. I then just followed the microwave instructions on the cup. Because I added a lot of additional ingredients, I actually microwaved this cup to the maximum amount suggested. and the noodles still didn't turn out soggy. While the noodles were cooking, I sliced up 2 cucumbers, and then I sprinkled over the Yubuchobap. I double checked that the noodles were cooked to my liking and then split the noodles between 2 bowls, but you can also eat the entire bowl yourself if you're hella hungry. After taste testing, I didn't feel like all the flavors were merging together the way I would have liked, so I added in some milk and microwaved it for a little longer, and that did the trick. I do always prefer Shin Ramyun made on the stove, but I would rate this 8 out of 10 because of how quickly it came together and that I had barely any dishes to wash after. I also just love the combination of Shin Ramyun and kimchi. Next up, taking less than 15 minutes, we have Yubuchobap and tuna lettuce wraps. For this meal, we need a Yubuchobap kit, microwavable jasmine rice, lettuce, cucumbers, and kimchi tuna. I did also use some furikake seasoning, sesame seeds, and mayo from home, which are optional but recommended. I initially thought I was going to use some Yubuchobap, but decided not to later. I started by washing some lettuce so I could leave it to drain while gathering the other ingredients together. And then I squeezed the bean curd pockets in the Yubuchobap pack. I like to squeeze each bean curd pocket separately to make sure I get as much liquid out, even though this does take an extra minute. Then I cook the rice according to the microwave instructions on the pack and just follow the instructions on the Yubuchobap packets. I started by stirring some seasoning and sauce into the rice, and then I stuffed each bean curd pocket with the rice. I did add a piece of kimchi into each bean curd pocket along with the rice just to add a little texture. I don't try to be too pretty about stuffing the bean curd pockets, I'm just trying to get it done within 5 minutes. Once I stuff the bean curd pockets, I like to top them off with furikake and sesame seeds. And I also added some extra kimchi to eat at the side. I really like using kimchi tuna for this meal because it adds so much flavor to my lettuce wraps, but I make sure to drain it so it doesn't make my lettuce wraps too soggy. This meal feeds 2 medium-sized bellies or 1 large belly. For some reason, I forgot to get the cucumbers in this shot, but I would definitely recommend slicing some cucumbers and adding them to the wraps because they add a delightful crunch. After taste testing, I felt the tuna needed some creaminess, so I added in some mayo, and it transformed it into a really delicious filling for the wraps. Honestly, I would rate this meal a 10 out of 10. There's just so many different flavors and textures while filling every single one of my nutrition needs, and the fact that it comes together in less than 15 minutes is mind-blowing to me. Finally, we have Ggoma Gimbap, aka mini kimbap. For this meal, we need microwavable jasmine rice, cucumbers, lettuce, spam, and kimchi. And then I also use some sesame oil, sesame seeds, and seaweed from home. I like making this version of kimbap because I can just use these seaweed snack packs that I often have at home, which make the process 10 times easier in my opinion. Each pack comes with about 10 seaweed sheets, and I'm going to use 4 to 5 snack packs today for 2 medium-sized meals. I start by cutting all my fillings around the same size as the horizontal length of my seaweed sheet. First, I cut the cucumbers into strips. Then I cut the lettuce slightly wider because I wanted to lay as a bed on top of my rice to hold the other fillings. I cut my kimchi into similar strips to the cucumbers. And then finally, I cut the spam into strips as well. I'm not cooking the spam to save time and dishes, but you can if you'd like. After microwaving my rice, I season it well with sesame oil and sesame seeds. This helps me save time at the end so I don't have to brush each kimbap with these flavorings. And then I start to assemble. First, I lay a seaweed sheet on a chopping board and then add a thin layer of rice covering around 2/3 of the sheet. Then goes the bed of lettuce, and finally the cucumber, kimchi, and spam. I gently roll it up and then place it on a plate with the open side down so that it seals. Once you get into the swing of things, this process is actually really meditative and shouldn't take you more than 15 minutes. If one of your kimbap opens, it's really not that big a deal. Just place the open side down and try your best to be gentle with the others. One of my favorite ways to enjoy Ggoma Gimbap is on a picnic, and that's exactly what I'm gonna do today. I packed myself and my partner a bento box so that we could enjoy this delicious meal in the fresh air. I also packed some water in my favorite bottle. It is engraved with my name. How cool is that? And I also packed a little sewn papadi in my lunch bag for dessert. For those of you that are unfamiliar, it's a chickpea pastry with pistachios and cardamom. Very, very delicious. I would rate this meal 9 out of 10. The only reason it isn't getting a 10 out of 10 is because it can take up to 30 minutes to make. But apart from that, it is one of my favorite meals in the world.
Korean instant meals hold such a special place in my heart. I went to boarding school growing up, and there were a lot of Korean kids in my school, and they introduced me to Korean instant meals. So in a lot of ways, this is comfort food for me. I hope you try one of these recipes, and if you do, let me know how it goes in the comments below.